Meg Whitman? John McCain respects the opinion of Meg Whitman and would use her advice as president? Is he serious? eBay has been a nest of fraud for years, and that is, in part, because of Meg Whitman and her so-called leadership at eBay. I'm not saying that Meg Whitman committed fraud in any way personally, however, she did not help fight it either, and the lackadaisical approach that eBay took towards fraud and fighting fraud on its site helped these people who were scam artists to scam people out of their money, and eBay took no action, or took no progressive action to try and help stop it from happening in the first place. eBay was understaffed, and they had to rely on the reports of individuals to start fraud investigations. However, when such reports were made against their power sellers, little action would be taken. All one has to do is look at Mike Brunker's series on eBay fraud on MSNBC.com to see examples of this. Take the sports card seller who used another ID to artificially raise the bidding price of the auction. This is an action called shilling, an action that is both illegal and against eBay policy. One eBay user discovered the fraud because he had done business with both the bidding and the selling ID that belonged to the same person and saw that it belonged to the same address. However, after all the reports were made, the seller was allowed to continue his sales on eBay and only received a minor slap on the wrist. I do not believe eBay even forced him to pay back the person who was defrauded out of hundreds of dollars on that auction. Not all power sellers are bad, but many of them abuse their status, and helping them along the way are power seller representatives who seem to guide their power sellers to some ambiguous point where their listing would not have any actionable offenses according to the eyes of eBay. So basically, the safe harbor representatives would help power sellers craft their auctions so that these safe harbor employees would not be able to take action. It's just wrong. I used to also report scams on eBay that I would come across. I happened to find a seller who was selling an item that I was particularly looking for, but he listed it as a bonus auction in listing of 10 auctions. So if I won 10 of those auctions, I would be guaranteed to have that special item. I thought it was too good to be true. Turns out it was. See, all that person would have to do is create a bidding ID like the previous seller I discussed, bid up the price of 2 or 3 auctions in order to make those prices so high that no one else would win those 3 auctions. So someone else might win, let's say, 7 auctions. But because that person won 7 auctions and not 10 auctions, they were not guaranteed to get the special prize. So when they got their auctions and did not get the special prize, there was no way for them to complain because, hey, you didn't win all 10. But guess what? It's fraud. And this would be fraud that was performed even by non-power sellers. Just plain old greedy people who want to scam people out of their money with false hopes of getting awards in rigged contests that were called auction listings. And guess what? eBay did nothing. eBay changed no policy to stop these types of auctions from happening. They happen today, and eBay refuses to stop them. So I refuse to take seriously any claim that Meg Whitman helped to fight fraud. What's even worse is that Rob Chestnut, a former member of the FBI and eBay's chief fraud fighter at the time, in a public chat actually stated that eBay's fraud statistics both underestimated fraud and overestimated fraud. You heard me right. eBay claimed that they both overestimated and underestimated their fraud. How's that for spin? So why would eBay be so tolerant of fraud? 2 reasons. First of all, they hide behind their status as a so-called venue. There's a California statute that basically allows eBay to say, hey, I'm a venue, so I'm not responsible for the interactions between the bidders and the sellers on my site. So that's one of the reasons why eBay doesn't have to take much action at all, because they'll say, hey, it's not our fault. You should buyer beware. The other reason is basically sheer profit. Every time someone gets away with fraud on eBay, eBay makes a buck. Instead of spending more money to support their safe harbor department to ensure that buyers and sellers on eBay would not get scammed, Meg Whitman got a jet. So how's that for a safe place to do business? So no, I have to strongly disagree with John McCain and about eBay being a great success story. Yes, eBay has made a lot of profit over the years, but at what expense? The expense of its users who got defrauded, who got scammed, and what happened? eBay took no action. So for somebody who's going to be our next president to rely on the advice of somebody who's too lazy and too greed-driven to actually worry about protecting its customers, no, John McCain has no business being our next president. Period.